Welcome to Tenacity with Sonia C, the podcast for founders, entrepreneurs, dreamers, and leaders navigating the journey of growth. In each episode, we get into the setbacks, the rebuilds, the pivots, and the lessons learned along the way. These are honest conversations with leaders who faced challenges head on and found success in business and in life. I'm your host, Sonia, and let's get started. My guest today is Rui Couto. Rui's journey started with a simple childhood purchase, a comic book bought for $1 at a garage sale, shortly after his family moved from Portugal to Canada. At the time, he didn't speak English, but the illustrations in comic books gave him something he could immediately connect with. That early fascination turned into decades of collecting. Over time, Rui built an impressive comic book collection, including a rare original copy of Superman #1, one of the most sought-after comic books in the world. But what makes Rui's story interesting isn't just collecting. Over the years, he has developed deep expertise in the collectibles market, particularly in comics, Pokémon cards, and mangas. Today, he works with collectors around the world, advises companies in the collectibles industry, and even designs protective cases through his company, Ghost Cases. Recently, Rui moved to Japan with his family, placing him even closer to the cultural and creative roots of manga, the very medium that has become a major part of his life and business. Today, we're talking about how a childhood passion can evolve into an expertise, what it takes to build credibility in a niche market, and how someone can turn a lifelong hobby into something much bigger. Hey, Rui, what's up?
What's going on, son?
I'm happy to finally get on this call with you. I think this is like season 3. This is going to be one of my favorite episodes. I've been looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm been looking forward to it as well. Something a little different for your podcast.
Yeah,
And I'm happy to
I'm
share my
pumped.
story and what I've been able to do out here in the other side of the world. So yeah, I
Yeah,
hope everyone finds it interesting.
I'm pumped. I think it's going to be super interesting. It's different, but I think it's really going to touch a lot of people who are or have been in your shoes that are like, damn, why didn't I do something like that? And this is the way to go about it. So let's start at the very beginning, shall we?
Hmm.
Okay,
Go back.
you started back into time. Okay, you started collecting comic books as a child after your family moved from Portugal to Canada. What was it about those early comics that captured your attention so strongly?
Well, I think like most kids, it's the visual aspects of the comics that kind of draws us in. So I've always been a fan of art in general. Even when I was
Mm,
young, I liked the drawing. And with the comic book specifically, I would try to mimic the art and things that I would see on the panels and the covers. And that just kind of resonated with me. And the fact that I couldn't really read the books at the time or anything like that, what really stood out was the this visual, beauty that was in front of me, these heroes, these larger than life characters kind of like coming to
hmm.
life in my head, right, through this visual media, right?
Yeah. But like, there's one thing with like going out and getting a comic book, but then there's like developing this passion for it and this hobby. How did it go from I don't speak English, these graphics, I really enjoy them. They also help me tell the story to where you are today?
Mm. So the collecting bug, which would have started with these comics and things like that, that's usually driven by the people you're surrounded with. It's hard to be a
Mm,
collector by yourself, right? You need a community that shares in that with you as well. It makes it better, right? So luckily I had my brother who was older than me and he approached it completely differently, right? So he had the price guide for these comics. So it was one thing to buy these comics and look at them and flip through the pages, but then it was like, oh wait, some of these are actually could be worth some money, right? And at the time we're talking a couple $100, right? Somewhere 1,000, 2,000. It was like, whoa, what the hell? And you just kind of start diving a little deeper. Okay, like why are these expensive? Oh, these are the first appearance of this character or the first issue of this book. and you just keep going further and further down that rabbit hole. And as you mature and you get older, you start your tastes develop and you start
Mm-hmm.
trying to obtain these books, right? Because you genuinely want them, not just to necessarily have that monetary value associated with them, but it does help, I will admit, to have that with it. It makes the appeal even stronger as a collector, right? So that's how it gradually got to the point where it is today. It was as a young kid with my brother, I had a cousin that was also into collecting, sharing that mutual interest, but also knowing that, like, hey, this is worth $50, this is worth $60. And as a kid, 50, $60 back then was like, wow, I got $60 right here. It was a big deal.
Yeah.
So that's how it kind of all started, really.
So how did you go from comic books to Pokemon?
So Pokemon was first introduced to me when I'm going to say about 12, 13, and it was the game. And this kid at my church, his name is Danny, he had the game, and he let me
Oh.
borrow it for a weekend for the Game Boy. And at first, I was like, "This game sucks." I didn't like it. I wasn't a fan. I got to be honest. It was just weird. It was different. It felt just unlike anything I'd ever played. But after I gave it a chance, suddenly I'm addicted because guess what you're doing in the game? You're collecting these Pokemon, and you have to collect them all, slash catch them all.
Gotta collect
And
them
so
all.
it just kind of spoke to me, right? And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And I became obsessed, just like every other
Oh.
kid during that time, right? During Pokemania, they called it. I became
Hmm.
completely obsessed. Started not only collecting the cards, but unlike most people, I wasn't just collecting the cards. I was also playing the cards.
Mm.
And so I had decks. On weekends, I would go to friends' homes and we would battle. I entered a few tournaments, did
You went
well.
to
Like
tournaments?
I went to tournaments and placed. Like, yeah, local tournaments and stuff, but placed, won a few times. Yeah, really super into it. It occupied a lot of my free time in those days. Let's just say that.
Do you
But
still have Pokemon cards?
I still have I still have all of my cards from when I was a kid, plus other ones I've obtained since then. I have a
What's
lot of the
what's
stuff
like
that I still
your
had as a kid.
what's your favorite?
My favorite Pokemon card, this one here. So this Charizard, it's called the Shadowless Charizard. I'm not sure how
Okay.
well you can see it. So this Charizard, it's an expensive one. It's not the most expensive Charizard, but it's probably the second most expensive Charizard in terms of it's not the first edition, but it is the Shadowless. But
Mm-hmm.
this card is special not just because of its value or anything like that, specifically because when I was collecting and playing Pokemon, my older brother for my birthday, he got this for me. So at the time, he probably went to the
Oh,
card shop and this probably cost him $100 back then, which was
a
kind of
hundred. That's a lot.
a hundred, yeah, $100 back then for a freaking Pokemon card was just insane. Now it's worth, a few thousand, but still, back then that was a big deal. But this holds dear to me because it was the card that he got me. And
Yeah.
I've never sold it. I've never even considered selling it. It's not in the greatest shape, but it's special for sentimental reasons as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So you go through this journey, you become a collector, and you eventually acquired one of the rarest books in existence, comic books, an original
Hmm.
copy of Superman #1, which is like the pride and joy, the jewel of most comic book collectors. What did it take for you to reach that moment as a collector?
So to get to Superman 1, it took a lot of strategy. So I wouldn't be able, based on my employment, my salary, things like that. There was no way I was going to be able to afford a 50,000 at the time, $50,000 book, just like that. So what it took was literally years in the making, years of buying this book for $1,000, that book for $500, that book, and kind of anticipating where the market might go with certain books. So I bought certain books at a cheaper price. And then 6, 7, 8, 9 years later, I was able to sell those books at a much higher price to fund my Superman one. So that's how I was able to obtain the Superman one. But it took a lot of sacrifice and strategy because at the end of the day, I had to get rid of a lot of books in my collection and downsize it just to be able to afford the Superman one. But
Yeah.
the Superman one was very special because for the longest time, that was a book I never thought I would ever get. But to be able to actually obtain it and have it was it did two things for me. Obviously, it made me thrilled to actually have this book and be one of the very few collectors in the world to actually own this a book, that book. But two, it also did something else where it kind of almost completed the hobby for me. In
Mm.
the sense that, yeah, it was a good and bad thing because any book that I got after that didn't hit the same way,
Yeah.
right? And then it just kind of it was like, okay, well, I got my Superman one. This is what I've
Now
always
what?
wanted. What now what? Yeah, exactly. Now what?
Yeah.
Where do I go from here? As a collector, where do I go from here, right? So it
Yeah.
did those two things for me. But but yeah, it was a fantastic moment at the time. It was awesome. And to this day I still have the book. It's not here with me personally. It's being kept safely with my other
Of
collection
course.
in Canada.
Yeah.
But yeah, now it's a six figure book at this point, and so yeah, it's my pride and joy.
Damn. We have a lot to cover in this episode, and I hope I don't forget anything. But if I do, interrupt me and
Mm.
fill it in. So I do want to get about, I do want to get into where you are now, but I do want to talk about like an important part, which is like, at what point did collecting stop being a hobby and start becoming a serious business for you?
So I think every collector at some point, and I'm going to touch base on something I briefly mentioned, where as a collector, you need to fund your hobby because you get
Mm-hmm.
addicted to this stuff. And so there are different ways of funding the hobby. You can either do it through your income that you do that you go to work, your 9 to 5, or you can do it by buying and selling some of the books you already have. So to a degree, most collectors, or a good chunk of them, already do that, right? We buy certain books and we sell them for a higher price in order to continue funding our hobby. So we all kind of do it to a certain degree. But then if you look at certain things, I started looking at things kind of differently. Okay, I like to display my books. I
Mm-hmm.
like to, share my collection. I like to have, see my background. I like to visually see my collection in front of me. I don't like storing it in a closet somewhere or putting all of my most expensive items in a safe. I like seeing them. So there was this gap as far as displaying your collectibles goes. So I just started looking into that and okay, well, what can I create? What can I make for myself, selfishly for myself
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to to do that? And then it just kind of happened a little bit by accident. I made a few cases for myself to display my collection, and other like-minded collectors really, really liked it. They were like, "Hey, where'd you get those cases? What'd you do? Like, how do I get them?" And then it was like, "Okay, well, ding, maybe I should order a bunch of these, my own original design, and sell them to people that want them." And that's how it came about finding that little niche within a niche
Mm-hmm.
and then kind of turning it into a small business, right? But from there, it's grown and expanded to different
So,
different lines, different products, different
yeah.
sizes.
So you have the ghost cases. Do you have an example of one? So these cases protect the books
Yeah,
themselves, right? And other
yeah.
collectors
So
will buy
this is
these
a
from
case
you.
itself.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's basically just an acrylic case. It's UV resistant. It's got a slider on the top with a magnet, and you can display your books here. Light can hit it. Everything. They're gonna stay protected. And because right now there's really nothing else to do that for your books. So this is would be
Mm-hmm.
considered kind of like a premium product, and it comes in different sizes, different thicknesses, because these books they come in different thicknesses and things like that.
Yeah.
Here's an example of a smaller, thicker book in a different sized case. Same deal,
Mm-hmm.
same idea with the slider. Um, and here's a book in my best selling case, which is for the Shonen Jump size. So that's the case
And
themselves.
was no one else doing making these
No,
cases?
no, there was nothing available on the market. No one was, because it was such a niche hobby at the time, right? It was
Mm-hmm.
maybe me, I knew me and maybe another handful of guys at the time that were
Yeah.
even collecting um, these specific books, right, which are Japanese manga at the time.
Yeah. So we're
So
gonna get into the mangas, but you've built your whole business around this hobby. How have you had? What have you had to learn in entrepreneurship to sort of because your business is unique, and obviously you and I have talked before. So your business is unique because like you don't really have a website. You don't have a store. You sell these cases, but you're also a consultant for companies that do grading of books and Pokemon cards, and you do a lot of consulting. You moved from Canada to Japan. Like there's all this stuff going on and you started this business, but it's a very unique business. And I'm really interested in you telling me a little bit about how you actually sell because I know that's something that we were talking out offsite from this conversation. And I found it to be really unique because most people they put together a store and you go through their inventory and you sell it, but you're more of a selling consultant. So tell me a little bit about that.
so I guess it really starts with when I first got into the hobby, I put so
Mm-hmm.
many hours into this, right? And it's not like the type of thing where you can go online, take a course to become an expert at it. Like, no, you gotta drill down, lock in, and make this your life essentially. And I mean, when I say in my life, like I was spending hours and hours and hours a day researching, looking into things, differences, how these books are made, how they're produced, going all the way back to the 30s, the 40s, the 20s, even with certain content related to these books. So I basically became an expert in the field. And once I became that, after years and years of putting in all this time into it, people started coming to me asking for advice, right? Oh, what's
Mm-hmm.
this? What's that? When did this happen? When did that happen? What book was did this take place? And then as the hobby slowly grew and started gaining a bit more attention from larger companies, they needed advice on it because they were just entering the game as well. So
Mm-hmm.
I found an opening, a position there where I could introduce this growing hobby to major companies such as grading companies, auction companies, and advise them on what they should take in, what they should do in order to become integrated with this this new emerging hobby, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I was able to build out a consulting business strictly based around my expertise and knowledge in these books. But I I decided not to just focus just on the consulting, right? I also have the
Mm-hmm.
cases. And I also not just have the cases as a consultant and as someone that deals with people that want to put these books in cases, they were also coming to me for books themselves because I have a quite the advantage by actually being here in Japan. So the
Mm-hmm.
way business works in Japan is a little different than how it does over there. So a lot of people they don't have websites here. If
Mm-hmm.
they do, it's a very rinky-dink Japanese website that's hard to navigate. If you're overseas, good luck trying to check out and buying books that way. So it's a bit of a hassle. So what I decided to do was kind of merge what I do with my consulting business and turn it into also a book selling business as well. So rather than having building a website where you see my inventory and you go there, you click a button, add it to a cart, I wanted to take away that element and just make it more human. And I know that may sound a little
Mm-hmm.
strange, but I I don't look at myself as a bookseller. I sell a service. I sell myself.
Mm-hmm.
So when you buy a book from me, you're also getting me, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes any sense.
Yeah.
So because of that, it's kind of like, okay, a lot of this stuff is brand new to people. They don't just want to buy a book, they have questions about it. And if you're buying
Yeah.
it from a website, you might get a chat bot, you might send an email in, and you might get a reply 5 days later. But that book might be sold by then. But with me, you're working directly with me through social media, typically. You let me know what you're looking for, and I'll tell you what I can find, things like that. I
Mm-hmm.
find that people enjoy that interaction better, much better than
Yeah.
some cold website, right? They're getting advice, they're asking questions, they're getting real answers in real time as well, and they're getting me essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to keep that model going, and it's been incredibly successful for me since then. I don't have 100 customers that I deal with a month or anything like that. I have a very select few, maybe anywhere from 30 to 40 loyal, consistent customers that buy on a regular basis. I don't have piles and stacks of books that I'm shipping out daily.
Well,
Nothing
I
like
don't know
that.
about that.
In comparison to the sites, yeah,
Yeah.
but it's a very focused service where I deal with the rare and more expensive items. So I deal with clientele that are looking for those specific things as well.
So if I'm your client, why is it beneficial for me to work with you? I don't know that much about books. So walk me through like a scenario of how you deal with a customer.
Okay, so a typical customer would reach out, hey, I'm looking for this book. Can you find it? So what I've done here is I don't necessarily have a bunch of inventory, right? I know it kind of looks like I do behind me, but that's
Mhm.
not the case. What I do is I've built a network over the last couple of years. Anytime I've bought anything online, anything I've gone to a shop, anytime I've done any business in person with anyone, I start building this network of connections, right?
Mhm.
Vendors, collectors, resellers that are local here that don't have any type of online presence. So when someone reaches out looking for something, I contact my entire network and I shoot out a message. Hey, looking for these books. If anyone has any, please, if you have one, please let me know. And then once they get back to me, I get pictures, I get all the information needed, and I relay that to my customer. At that point, I charge my fee, which is 10%.
Mhm.
And so for whatever the price I can get it for, I add my fee on top of it, and then I finish the transaction with the customer. But the customer can ask any questions. Hey, I need more
Mm.
photos. I need this. I need that. It's all happening in real time, right? And they're able to access inventory and items that would otherwise you would never be able to find online, which is the only option for 99% of my clients because they're all overseas.
So what's like an example of a book that someone basically sourced from you? Because that's what you're doing. You're sourcing.
So probably one of the more popular books is this Shonen Jump 51.
That's
So this is
Dragon
the
Ball
first
Z, right? I
serialization
knew
of
that.
Dragon Ball. Yeah, yeah, of Dragon Ball. That's right. Yeah, and it's the first appearance of Goku. So this is an incredibly important book, um, especially in terms of historical importance for manga and pop culture in general. You've even heard of Dragon Ball, right?
Yeah, the
It's just
cartoon.
one of those household names. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's one of those household name type things. And for a lot of us, there's an entire generation out there that didn't grow up with Superman or Batman or Wonder Woman. They didn't grow up with them. Just because
That's true.
I did personally, but there's younger kids that didn't. They grew up with these anime characters. So to them, these anime characters like Goku, Naruto, Luffy from One Piece, that's their Superman, Batman, Wonder
Mm.
Woman, Captain America, right? So they hold these characters on a high at a much higher tier than they do those old American superheroes. So these books have become incredibly sought after, right? And
Hmm.
to a degree, even I grew up with Goku, right? I was already in high school, but I was obsessed with this show. I was obsessed with that anime. So there was
Yeah.
something in me that just wanted to get that first appearance. So they will ask me to find books like this for them.
Hmm.
And I've been incredibly successful at sourcing them. Last year alone, I did, I think it was about 16, 17 copies of this book, which
Wow.
is incredibly high. The first Luffy, first One Piece, I think I did about another 13, 12, 13 copies of that as well, which is another very sought after book. And these books are currently, right now, they're seeing record numbers. So, for example, this issue here, this incredibly high grade, if I was to sell this issue, I wouldn't consider anything under 100,000 at this point.
Oh, wow.
But the
Whoa.
crazy part is, I know, the crazy part is this book could have been purchased a year ago for under 10,000. So the
Damn.
growth has been insane. It's been insane. But because of that growth, because of that popularity, it's become so
Yeah.
sought after, and more clients, more and more potential customers are reaching out.
So how did you okay, so you're collecting comic books, you're on Pokemon. How did you like think about or figure out that manga was gonna be the next thing? Like, was it just because you were interested in, but how did you have an eye? Like, obviously, there's something about you that sort of foresees this. Like, you did it with comics, you did it with Pokemon, and now you've done it with manga. Like, I knew nothing about manga, and I started following you. And I remember the first time it stuck out to me was when you showed on your Instagram a manga of Godzilla. I think it was Godzilla, the big
Mm,
dinosaur, the
yes.
green one, Godzilla, right?
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and then I was thinking, I'm like, wait, that is a Japanese like movie thing. And I'm like, oh, it comes from a book. And that's the book. I didn't even like think about it. So how did you figure out that this was gonna be a thing? Obviously, like look at your collection behind you. I follow you. I know you have like a massive following for it, but like how did you figure this out?
Yeah. I just applied kind of the same tactics and the same logic that I did with comic books.
Mm-hmm.
So with comic books, things like first appearances, they were obviously always sought after within the hobby. And when it came to manga, so the reason I gravitated towards manga was after the Superman one, um, I kind of felt a little empty with comic book collecting, and I needed something new. I needed something to kind of reinvigorate me. I was still
Mm.
collecting comics, but I didn't have that same oomph that I once
Yeah.
had for it, right? I needed to discover something new. And that's when I started looking into these. I was really into anime at the time. So I gravitated towards these books because all of the anime and things like that that I was watching originated in manga, which is essentially comics.
Mm-hmm.
And the further I did more research, I'm like, oh man, this character, this series that I'm currently watching first started in this manga from this year. And I saw so many similarities to comics, but it
Mm-hmm.
was this kind of different art form as well because it's in a language I can't understand. The books don't open from uh, left to right; they open
What?
from right to left. Yeah, right.
Really?
It's just kind of backwards in that sense. Yeah, they were super, super thick books, unlike comics. It was just so weird, new, and refreshing, really. And I just went down that rabbit hole and I went all in. And
You went
as soon
deep.
as I did, I went super deep with it and I loved it. It was great. But at the time, there wasn't many of us doing it. It was maybe a handful of guys, like three,
Yeah.
four, maybe five. And we all connected online because of it. And something clicked in me where I was like, you know what? I'm going to sell a big chunk of my comic book collection and I'm going all in on these mangas. I'm going all in. And
Oh,
at the time, I was criticized by a few of the comic book guys.
okay.
Some pretty mean spirited comments I got. Um, but I stuck to it. I
But look
stuck
at
to
you
it
now.
because exactly, and I just kind of foresaw that. Okay, if Superman, Batman, Captain America, if these heroes, years later, if their books became very expensive, like we're talking millions for some of these books,
Mm-hmm.
millions at this
Yeah.
point. If they turned into that, then why wouldn't Goku and these other characters turn into that? For example, you used Godzilla. I'm sure a lot of people up until recently had no idea that Godzilla was in a manga
Yeah.
style book prior to the movie being released. But everyone's heard of Godzilla. I can ask my mom. Mom, she's never watched a comic a Godzilla movie. But if I said, Godzilla, she'd probably be like, yeah, I know Godzilla. But she's never
Yeah,
watched the
yeah.
movie. It's a household name, right? So that kind of just made sense to me. Like, why
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't this be worth $1 million one day? It should be worth a
Yeah.
million plus one day, right? It's from 1954. It's old. It's super rare. It just kind of makes sense. If Superman is, if Batman is, then shouldn't this character? And then I
Mm.
kept looking into more things. We've probably heard of Astro Boy, even though you've probably never
Yeah.
watched an episode or read a manga. You've heard of Astro Boy.
I've heard,
He
yeah, I
originated,
have.
yeah, 1951 manga, right?
Mm.
And that's
So
that
so
that just made sense to me.
so what's the holy grail of manga?
The hobby's still so new. It's still there's still
Oh.
room for that to be kind of decided, right? The
Mm,
hobby and collectors, especially all the new collectors coming in, spending the big money, they're the ones that are going to ultimately make that decision. I can't really say, oh, it's going to be this. I can only
mm.
speculate.
Okay.
Luckily
It's your
for me,
speculation.
since I got into it early enough, I was able to pick up the books that I would speculate on. And
Oh, okay.
yeah, for me personally, I think it would be there's going to be different tiers, different types of collectors. There's going to be the guys that are going after the things that they actually grew up with. So like
Mm-hmm.
the Dragon Balls, the One Piece, things like that. So those two books will hold a very high value to one type of collector, right? Even Pokemon was released as a manga coinciding with the video games, right?
Wait, Pokemon
And
was
with
a
the anime.
manga?
Yeah. It's there's still an ongoing manga to this day. It's actually a very long running manga.
So
But
that's where it originated from, a manga
no,
book.
it
Oh.
originated as a video game. It originated as this video that came out,
Oh.
but there was
You
a
have the
manga
video
that
game
came
still?
out at the same time. Of course, yeah. There was a manga that came out at the same time, and this was normal practice here in those days, where if there was a video game, an anime, they would also create a manga for it just to try to pump up
Mm.
the main thing for that IP. So in this case, they the Game Freak Nintendo went to Coral Comics and said, "Hey, we got these games coming out. Create a manga, related to these games, just to create some awareness and hopefully pump up some video game sales." And they did this for a lot of other very famous IPs as well.
Mhm.
This was very
So how
common
much is that
practice
game
in those days.
worth? How much is that
That
game worth?
game there in high grade, a in high grade first print, which this is, I would estimate if this came back at an 8, you're probably looking anywhere from 4 to 5 thousand for something like this.
Wow, for a video
Graded.
game.
Yeah, for video game, for first print. Well, these were also very low in print, right? They only made 110,000 of these in first print because Nintendo didn't have a lot of faith in this game when it was first made. So they
Oh.
didn't make a lot of copies initially. Only after the boom and it became clearly popular, then they started making second prints, third prints, so on and so forth.
Okay,
But
okay, cool.
yeah, what that holy grail might be up, it's up for discussion, right? Because then you got the
Okay.
guys that will look further back, right? The older stuff, right? Like the Godzillas, the Astro Boys, Lone Wolf and Cub. These are really popular titles that already hold significant value, but we don't
Mm,
know. We don't know. It's still so fresh. It's still so open.
yeah.
And I think once we see that first $100,000 sale, that first, you know, 200, $300,000 sale, that's when we'll start getting a good idea of, okay, what are guys really paying for? What are guys really, holding up at that tippy top of the mountain, right? So it's
I love
exciting
that.
times right now for the hobby.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, for sure. So let's talk about you lived in Canada. Well, you were born in Portugal, moved to Canada, and recently you moved to Japan with your family, and now you live at the center of where manga is created. How has living in
Mm.
Japan changed how you understand the culture behind these books?
Yeah, the culture here is completely different, and in
Does it
terms
give
of
you an
how does it change,
advantage?
it gives me massive advantage being here because I'm able to deal with people directly. And a lot of the shops here, even the ones that do have an online presence, they don't necessarily post their books online immediately. Sometimes it takes a few weeks for them to
Mm,
transition to an online sale. So I also hold that advantage as well. But it's the dealing, it's the way they do business here, that I had some growing pains when I first started. But I
okay.
had to learn, right? So, for example, I think I'll give you two really important examples. We in the Western world, whenever you go to a comic shop, you go to a comic convention, it is not considered weird or abnormal to negotiate, to haggle a bit, especially if you're
Hmm.
buying a few books, right? I'm gonna buy 3 or 4 books from this guy. I'm gonna haggle a bit. You want 1,000 bucks? I'll give you 800. Let's get the deal done at 800. Very normal, right? If
Hmm.
anything, prices are often inflated to adjust for that negotiations, right? Not here. Here, it's
No.
kind of frowned upon. Actually,
Oh,
it's they
really?
they they take a pride in what they're presenting, what they've priced it at, and they feel that it's fair. So to ask for a negotiation or ask for any type of discount, not to all, but to most, would almost be considered insulting to them. Kind
Wow.
of like, what are you saying? I overpriced my stuff here? It's a different way of looking at it. And I made that mistake in the beginning, the very beginning. And there was a
Yeah.
couple of dealers, a couple of guys that to this day will not deal with me because I simply asked for a discount after buying stacks of books. And it
Wow.
was bizarre. One time I went to someone else and they were like, "Oh, you're the foreigner that's buying all the manga. You're the guy that likes asking for discounts." And I was like, "Whoa, this is getting around." That's how big of a thing it was to them, right? Like, "Oh, be careful with
Wow.
this guy. He likes asking for discounts." So culturally, I was unaware of that. And then the other thing too is for a lot of these small shops or very local collectors, if they invite you to their home or to their shop or something, it's a very intimate experience, a very intimate moment, right? You
Mm.
need to bring a gift. So gift giving is a very big part of the culture. And I'm not talking about go out and buy them $100 present.
Yeah.
Everywhere here, there's these little shops. You see them at a lot of train stations and stuff. And it's usually like these pre-wrapped gifts. It can be like treats, cookies, and it's usually something, a local delicacy or something to represent the city that you're in, things like that. And you take this and you present it to the
Wow.
shop or the collector
Oh.
that you're going to go visit as a token of your appreciation. And not only is it expected, it's 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 appreciated by them. And
Oh.
if you don't do it, right, you run the risk of them looking at you kind of like, well, this guy not do his
That's
research.
the
He
guy.
didn't. Yeah, yeah, exactly. He didn't do his homework. Whereas, even as a Westerner, if I do it, it's like, okay, this guy cares, right? He's putting in his time, he's putting in his research into this, right? And
Wow.
it's appreciated. There's one guy I deal with where he doesn't want any cookies or any of that stuff, right? I bring him a beer and a bag of chips. Loves it.
What?
Loves it. Starts pounding back that beer and eating those chips almost immediately. Every time we meet. That's why I go to the convenience store and that's what I get him as a gift. But it's that part of the culture that you need to
Yeah.
learn in order to really make any headways here in Japan. And respect. I'd say respect is probably the other thing.
Yeah.
Be incredibly respectful of their time, their space, everything, right? It's not
Mm.
as loose as where we come from. So you need to
Mm.
be on your toes when doing business here and doing any type of transaction. And then the other thing is cash. Cash is king here.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
very, very cash focused society still. Yeah. Offering, hey, can I PayPal you the money or things like that? Not really, not very common at all.
Oh.
Very rare to find anyone that would accept that form of payment. They want cash. So that was the other thing I needed to get um, used to, carrying,
Yeah.
you know, stacks of cash with me just to be able to buy some books.
So, so you have to spend gas going meeting up with these people, bringing cash and a gift.
Yes. Yeah.
That's like old school.
It is. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's got that old school feel to it, but I enjoy it now. Now I enjoy it.
Oh, okay. You've gotten used
I,
to it.
I, I've gotten used to it to the point where I've even applied some of it when it comes to my own business. So when I deal with
Mm.
my clients, I always tell them, because in a lot of them, because I'm dealing with mostly Westerners, they will ask for discounts and things like that. And then I need to explain, listen, my sources, who I'm getting things from, they don't discount. They don't discount. These things are priced fairly and they're priced at what they need in order to sell them. So
Hmm.
respectfully, no, there are no discounts. This is the
Yeah.
price. And
Mm.
I'd say majority of them understand it,
Mm.
even though it might be a little difficult for them to
Yeah.
wrap their heads around it. They do understand it, right? And once I
Yeah.
explain that culturally it's different, right? I can't, and I don't go to my network and ask them like, hey, can you give me a discount for this? Just because a client is asking for a discount. I do not do that.
No, because you obviously you're gonna get a worse reputation. Some guys are
Exactly.
already,
Exactly. Exactly.
word
There's a
gets
couple of guys
around
there that,
about this
oh,
guy.
it does. It does. It's not worth it.
No, for sure. So you've become known as someone who collectors trust to source rare mangas and collectibles. How does someone build that type of credibility in a niche community like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So you got to find the community first, right? And if you can't find the community, you grow one, you create one, right?
Hmm.
And there's a few different ways of doing that. Social media is a big one, obviously. So I switched when I switched from comics to manga. I didn't create a new page. I didn't do anything like that. I literally did it in front of my comic book followers, right, on my Instagram.
Hmm.
Lost a bunch, but started gaining a new type of follower as well, right? And I
Hmm.
just stayed consistent. People, I think, saw that I was genuine about how much I enjoyed these books and my
Yeah.
knowledge about them. And for a lot of them, they were being introduced because of some of my posts. There was other guys posting as
Yeah.
well. I'm not saying I was the only guy doing it. Absolutely not. But I think my consistency and my genuine interest about it did help me grow and establish that. And then there's other networks, other resources as well, such as Discord groups and things like that, where you can also grow a very tight knit community. And then
Hmm.
just using those communities and becoming part of them, and sharing your knowledge and things like that with like minded people and new people that want to learn. You're able to establish yourself as what we would call an OG, and a lot of people come to you and they respect it. They respect it, and they want to learn, and they like what you've done for the hobby, right? At that point,
Yeah.
especially with
I've
something
s-
like this that's just really growing now, right?
yeah. I've seen that on your Instagram where people are like the OG, the GOAT when you make some comments. So tell me, what mistakes do new collectors often make?
Yeah. So because there's a language barrier with these books, a lot of people will use AI or they'll use Google Translate to try to
Mm,
figure out, oh, what is the first appearance of this character? What is the first serialization or chapter one of this series? And unfortunately, the internet's not going to necessarily give you the perfect answer. So I
mm-hmm.
have stacks of books, my mistake books that I bought thinking like, oh, somewhere in this book it
Oh,
was the first chapter, first appearance of this character, but it wasn't, right? And because a lot of this information, not only is there misinformation, but a lot of things haven't been discovered yet.
yeah.
So me and some of the other guys that were early in on this, we were literally pioneers in the sense that we've spent money on worthless books chasing information, and that the only way to find out was by literally having to buy this book, physically getting it, opening up the pages in order to determine, yes, it does have the information that we're looking for, or no, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And I have a stack of those books. It's probably spent in the thousands now at this point, just looking for information to verify information. So a big
Mm,
mistake a lot of new collectors do is that, rather than consulting or trying to obtain that information through guys that have been through it already, they try to do it
mm.
on their own, which I respect the hell out of. FYI, I love that. I love that. I think those mistakes make you a better collector, and you will
Mm,
get better at research by making those mistakes. But unfortunately, those mistakes, they do happen a lot with the new collectors, and some of them might even unknowingly buy fakes. There are some fakes of
mm.
certain popular books out there,
Oh,
and they are floating around. And unfortunately, some fans have, some collectors have purchased these fakes.
man, I had a coin collection growing up. I still have it, but I never did anything with it. But talking to you, I'm totally regretting it. I wish I had
Look
been
into it.
more into
You
it.
never know what you're sitting on.
It's a lot of work to have a hobby. So you now advise companies, not just your customers, you actually advise companies and you even helped support the launch of a manga grading service with certified guarantee company. What expertise were they looking for from you?
Yeah, so from me, what they were looking for was basically, what are these things? What are we going to be encapsulating? And then everything from the physical dimensions, sizing of them, kind of the nuances. What do they come with? Because some of these would come with attachments inside that could have been peeled off, or stickers, or other little what they would call appendix or supplements that would come with the books. So this company, they were just not familiar with it, right? So they needed to be educated on what these books actually are, right?
Mm,
So I had to obviously do that, educate them on that, values, most sought after issues, just so that they know what type of books, what issues will people most likely be submitting to us. And then there's encapsulation, case design. So because I do have a little bit of experience in case design, I was able to help them with that as well. Um, and building out a database. So building out a database of these manga was probably the most difficult thing, because we're
mm,
looking at, 200,000 plus specific individual issues that have been printed across the board from, the 30s up until now, right? And it's still ongoing. So building out that database was incredibly difficult. And even then it's still kind of to a degree, it's still an ongoing build, right? As books are going to
mm-hmm,
be getting submitted, information will be added and things like that. But that's stuff that I'd been working on for years up until that point. And that's what they needed from me. And obviously the expertise on how to tell fakes apart, um, have to do training for that. So the manga grading launch itself is still due.
mm-hmm.
We're hoping, fingers crossed, sometime this year. But it's an exciting project, and CGC is the authority when it comes to grading collectibles. So the fact that they even wanted to get into this space really validates my decision to go into manga collecting, and getting into it so early and becoming a quote unquote expert in it has opened up an employment opportunity with companies such as this.
Yeah. So I want to go back to the business aspect of it. And obviously we've talked about this a little bit about this a little bit, but I want to get into it. So you created the ghost cases, and I've seen online where, one day you're announcing that you have like ghost cases coming out, and then the next day I'll see your post, sorry, sold out, right? So what problem did you see that made you decide to build your own solution, and how did you turn that into a product?
So the problem that I saw was these books, the way that they're designed and made, they're very flimsy. They're made on recycled paper, so they
Mm,
weren't made to be collected, right? These are thick volumes that come out weekly. They were made to be, you get them, you buy them, they're cheap, right? Materials cheap. You read them, and then you toss them out. Here in Japan, space is very limited. So you can't
mm,
have a giant collection of these. So what they'll do is these books, they come with multiple chapters of different manga, different series. So for
mm,
someone, they might be buying this book that week just to read one specific chapter from one specific series that they like in it. And that's it.
mm,
But at the end of the year or every 6 months, the publisher will come out with these little books they call takobans, and they're collected volumes of the chapters that came out in these big ones. That's what people really collect here. That's what was intended to be collected, because they're small, they're
oh,
portable. You can have one bookshelf with an entire series. You can have the entire Dragon Ball run, and it only takes up a single shelf. Where the entire Dragon Ball run or the Shonen Jump run takes up multiple shelves, as you can see behind me here, right?
mm-hmm,
So, because of their being a fragile product, I wanted something to protect them, because grade is king when it comes to collecting.
mm,
So, that's why I wanted to design a case, selfishly for myself, because I wanted to protect these things. So, I designed that case, did it, people loved it, other collectors wanted them. So then I decided to, okay, I'm going to reach out to China. I'm going to get these things manufactured. I had about maybe 5 or 6 prototypes. And I know it seems like just a box, an acrylic box, but there's so much more to it. But there was
yeah,
about 5 or 6 prototypes that I had to test out before I had that exact product. Because at the end of the day, I wanted to make sure that I put something out there that people would like. I didn't want to put out some flimsy thing that was going to crack or break.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If it's going to have my logo on, it's going to have my backing. It's got to be good, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I created the case specifically because these books they're fragile and I knew
Mm-hmm.
that they were going to be worth something and they're collectible, right? That's why
Yeah.
I built it.
Like I know that online you sell out, like you turned it into a
Mm,
very sought after product.
yeah. So the way I did that was a little bit by accident and also lack of space. So these things they're not exactly tiny. So when I ship them out, they ship out in a box, right, with padding and foam and all of that. So it ends up being about that thick. It doesn't take many of these to take up a lot of room. So it's not like I could order 300 or 400 of them at a time. I
Right.
literally only have space for maybe, 30 or 40 of each size. And even that takes up a lot of space. So when you only have that limited amount of product, it does sell out rather quickly.
That's
So it's not
that's
so it's not
genius
selling out.
though.
I know it makes it very, very exclusive, right? And
Yeah.
I constantly have guys asking like, "Hey, when are you gonna get more cases? When are you gonna get more cases?" But there have been growing pains in turning this into a viable business. And part of
Mm.
the growing pains is I'm located in Japan and there's the logistics of it, the shipping. So right now, all of my sales go through a local company that a local website, a marketplace website, and people use a third party application to purchase from it. So a
Mm.
lot of steps to go through it, right? And like I said, these things they're not cheap to ship. You're probably looking
Yeah.
at about USD minimum $30 just to ship one,
Wow.
and but at the same time, I also charge $30 to $50 per case.
Yeah.
So it's pretty expensive at the end of the day just to get a single case in your hands. And that's why I launched a new product a few months ago. And so this is just a plastic sleeve. So it would be if you don't
Oh,
necessarily want to put all your books in these big, heavy cases, you can get these sleeves. And I'm able to ship them flat. And you just
they're
basically pop them open,
foldable. Oh, that's
right? You can
genius.
unfold it and you can piece it together and you pop your book in it and it gives it some type of protection, right? Which is better
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
I ship all any books that I sell, I ship them in this for that added protection. But you can buy 5 of these for $30 instead of
Yeah.
one of these for $30. So you're able to protect a lot more of your collection
Mm-hmm.
um, with this type of product. But but as any good businessman should do, you got to always think about new products and how to solve any issues or problems you're having. So the
Mm-hmm.
biggest problem I had was the logistics issue, right? So what I've done now is I'm going to have a prototype in my hands in a matter of a week or two, but I basically took my original design and I completely revamped it. So working with the designers out of the manufacturing plant that I work with, um, we're at about, I think this is the third or fourth prototype for it, but basically we've created a new case where the front and back are the exact same dimensions, but you're able
Oh.
to purchase different thicknesses. So the bottoms and the sides and the top, you can purchase different thicknesses based on the manga that you want to uh, store in it
Mm-hmm.
and how it's an assemble. You assemble it yourself. There's no
Okay. Yeah.
tools. There's no glue. So these can be shipped flat. You select the size you want, and you just snap it all together. Snap, 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 and then there's a slider on the top. Place your book inside. So because it can be
Mm.
shipped flat, now people can buy 5 cases for a cheaper price at
Yeah.
half the cost of shipping. So not only
Yeah.
have I
You solved the
done
problem.
more for my customers this way,
Yeah.
I've solved the problem. They still get an acrylic case that's sturdy. Right now, we're going through the testing phase, dropping and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's sturdy. It can be shipped flat. But most importantly, before the same box that would cost $30 to ship one of these, now you can get 6 of them, 6 cases
Wow.
for the same cost that it was going to be to get a single case. So I've
I
solved a
love
major
it.
problem here, and
You
I'm very
pivoted.
excited about it.
Yeah, you
Pivoted a
pivoted,
bit, yeah.
right?
I pivoted.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. It solved a bunch of problems for me. Solved the shipping issue. It solved the, you know, people that wanted multiple cases but couldn't afford it. But it
Hmm.
also solved the storage issue that I was having here personally. Now I'm
So
going to be
a
able to
personal
store.
problem, a
Yes,
personal
it was a
problem, became a solution.
exactly, exactly. Now I'm going to be able to store double, maybe triple the amount of cases that I would have been able to before, occupying the
Yeah,
same amount of space,
I love
which is
it.
good for my customers, right? And it
Yeah,
lowers my cost. I'm able to give my customers that better cost as well. But
yeah.
yeah, I'm very excited for this product and to see how it does.
I love that. Like, obviously, it's your business, and you want to solve the problem for yourself. But I love that you were like, you could have been like, you know what, it's $30 to ship. Forget it. That's all it is. But you're very like intuitive. You keep thinking about how can I solve all these problems. Like, you're a real problem solver, and you could have settled for the little plastic case, the foldable one that you showed me, but no, you kept thinking even further. Does all of that protection, like your ghost case, ideas, pivoting, does that all come from your experience with comic books and the value and the storage of that product? Because I know comic books are also like protected. Does everything that you're doing now with manga go back to your experience with comic books?
100%,
Yeah.
100%. So it doesn't, most collectibles, comic books, cards, video games, there's some type of protection for them, right? And
Mm-hmm.
these are established hobbies at this point. But with manga, because it's so fresh and so new, no one had entered that space. So that's when I
Yeah.
was like, okay, if I'm able to protect my comics and my video games and my cards with, top loaders or, these plastic cases, then I want to do the same for these manga. Like, I don't care if there aren't a bunch of people collecting them. I want to do it
Yeah.
for myself. And that's what drove me to do it, right? And
Yeah.
luckily enough people agreed. So I was able to continue it as a viable business.
I love it. Love it. That's such a fantastic idea. I love it. So let's talk about tenacity a little bit because you are on the Tenacity podcast. You've turned something
Yeah, yeah.
you loved as a kid into a career and a business. What challenge tested you the most along your journey?
I think it was that fear. I think we all have that little bit of fear where you you don't want to fail at something. And
Mm,
and that fear kind of held me back for a bit until I got to a certain age and a certain point where I was like, you know what, screw this. I'm
mm,
just gonna actually try and do what I actually enjoy, right?
yeah.
And if I can make some money from it, even better. And it just kind of started with that thought, right? Leaving that fear behind and kind of looking at my space that I that I enjoy, something that I'm doing for free, right? Research
Mm-hmm.
and this and that, and trying to turn it into an actual business.
Yeah.
It was leaving that fear behind and actually going for it and actually and stop talking about doing it. Someone once told me something, and it's not elegant or anything like that. And I hope you don't take offense to what I'm about to say, but it really resonated with me and it stuck with me. And he said, Rui, you know what? Stop saying shit and start doing shit. I'm like, man, you're not a poet or anything, but that's so true. And it
Yeah.
resonated
Yeah.
with me because a lot of us, we say we're going to do this or say we're going to do that, but we don't actually necessarily do it, right? And it was once I was able to actually start doing it,
Mm,
contacting these manufacturers in China, looking at designing, sitting down at night and in my sketchbook, designing cases, taking measurements, is when I actually started doing that stuff and applying it that I actually start, you know, having a business and making money from it. And it all led down to where I am now, where I'm advising for
yeah.
companies, I'm selling to clients from all over the world, right?
Yeah.
To the point where now I'm even selling for some celebrity clients. I have clients that would be considered celebrities at this point. I can't say any names, obviously, because of NDAs,
Yeah.
but at this point, I'm also selling to celebrities. Celebrities are
That's
buying
awesome.
manga now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have a little boy. Uh,
Mm.
two questions. Two questions. What's his favorite Pokemon? I know he loves Pokemon. And how is your hobby influencing him at such a young age?
So his favorite Pokemon, he's got a few. He's only two. He's only 2.5, so he's all over the place. One day he's in love with Mew. He loves Mew. The other day it's Squirtle. But if I had to land on one, I would say Mew. He's a big fan of Mew. He has a Mew
Okay.
plushie that he sleeps with at night. But he just loves
Oh.
Pokemon in general. If I had to say name his favorite characters out of Pokemon altogether, big Team Rocket fan. Quotes their little their little mantra that they do on every episode. He gets up on the couch. He just loves it, right? And it's really
Okay.
nice for me to see. It's nice for me to see because it's like I get it. I know why Pokemon is so appealing, but even
Yeah.
this little kid is obsessed with it and loves it. Um, so so yeah, it's that's his favorite Pokemon. And what was the other question? Sorry.
How has your hobby influenced him a little bit?
Ah, so he's a big fan of coming into my collection room, and my collection room is also my office. So I spend a lot of
Hmm.
time in here, and I can only imagine what it's like as a kid having this type of room in your house.
Oh.
Incredibly tempting. First of all, he's always trying to grab a book or grab a toy or grab something. So I feel bad for him in that sense. Because I'm always like, buddy, no, don't touch that. But I hope it will teach him and influence him about a few different things. A, collecting, and B, organizing. My collection is very incredibly organized. And
Mm.
growing up around it and seeing everything in its place, I'm hoping that that resonates with him as well as he gets older. And if it could also inspire him to create his own collection, that would, obviously as a father, that would be a very proud moment for me as well, right? It may even do the opposite, where he may not care for collecting at all because he grew up around it. But I like to think that we're influenced by our parents a lot, and hopefully it will resonate with him as well.
Yeah, I'm
Obviously,
sure it
I will
will.
try to give him a little push in the right direction too.
Does he go hunting for books with you?
Yeah, I've taken him on a few hunts. Absolutely, absolutely, and he's even though he's very young, like he's careful. Like if he does go to the shelf and he grabs a book, he's not, grabbing it and tossing it out, right? He's grabbing it, he's saying, Dad, I got this for you. And he's bringing the book carefully to me and he's handing it over, right?
Yeah.
He's not trying to take them out of the plastics or anything like that. He has a bit of an understanding already that, these aren't toys. These aren't
Yeah.
things that you can just toss around or kick or drop,
Hmm.
right? which
He
is
has the
which is
understanding.
very interesting to see. Yeah, the understanding is kind of already there. It's pretty cool.
Hmm. Well, Rui, we are coming up on time. This was such a good conversation. But before we wrap up,
Mhm.
one last question. For someone listening to you right now who has a hobby or a passion they care deeply about, what separates the people who keep it as a hobby from the ones who turn it into a real expertise like you?
There, that's a tough question. It's a tough question, but I think a lot of it comes down to what your own personal motivations are at the end of the day. Do
Mm,
you want this to just remain a hobby, or do you want to turn it into something more? I know a lot of guys where this is just a hobby. They're just purists in the sense that they just want to collect something they enjoy. They want to put it on the shelf and they don't want to think about it after, right? They want to
mm,
go there and access it whenever they want to. And that is perfectly fine. I admire that. But then there's others where we go down a little bit of a different path, where we see an opportunity within this space that we love, and
mm,
and we turn it into something else. It really comes down to motivations at the end of the day. And for myself, for the longest time, there's this thing with collectors where some of us will be like, you know what, I'm gonna collect. I'm gonna get as much of this as I can, and one day when I'm older, way down the road, I'll sell my collection and I'll
mm,
retire. That's kind of the age-old mentality behind it, really,
mm,
where only after I had my son and now I have a family that I realized that I can't think that way anymore. If something was to happen to me now, I'm not leaving a bunch of money for my family. I'm leaving a burden behind. My wife won't know what to do with all these books. Oh, she'll probably end up getting ripped off. She'll only get a fraction of the actual value of it. So just going to hold on to until I retire and pass down in generations? No. Some of it, absolutely, because I love this stuff and I love being around it. But at the same time, I need to sell some of it. I need to make money
Yeah.
from it in order to provide for my family and hopefully secure a future down the road. So yeah,
Yeah.
it
I
would
love
come
it.
down to just pure motivations and what your personal experience and your personal surroundings are like. I think that's what will
Yeah.
drive someone down one path or another when it comes to collecting.
I love it. This conversation was so interesting. I love the fact that like you know, we talk about all the time people in business like do what you're passionate about. Do what you're passionate about. But you've really taken that to like the next level. Like not only like you're literally doing what you're passionate about from when you were like a little boy. And you there was no business in what you're doing. You literally took your passion and you turned it into a business, which is like very rare.
Oh yeah, yeah, it
Yeah.
is rare. Hey, buddy.
Oh, he's
Sorry.
there.
Ah,
Hello.
um, say hi. Yeah, it is. It can be pretty rare when it comes to that. But but it's also fun, right? To do
Mm-hmm.
something that you love, and make money from it and turn it into a business. It's incredibly fun and very, very rewarding, right?
Yeah.
And I would hope that more people are able to go down that road and explore the possibilities of taking something they enjoy and making a living out of it because it doesn't feel like you're working. Sometimes I'm up at 2 a.m. dealing with my clients who are in a totally different time zone, but it doesn't feel like work. It's not like I'm like, oh man, I hate doing this. No, it's exciting. I'm talking about books. I'm talking about this and stuff I actually care about, right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
your life is so rewarding. It's so fulfilling when you can actually do that
Yeah.
as a job, as a career.
Yeah. I mean, listening to you, I feel like, oh, I'm a little jealous. Like you can see that it's something that you really are passionate about.
Yeah, yeah, it really is.
Well, Rui, thank you so much. This was such a lovely conversation. I
Yeah,
thoroughly
thank you.
enjoyed myself. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Um, yeah, I'm glad. I'm sure we'll do it again. I'd love to see in the next couple of months, years where you're at, if you're still in Japan and if you're how it's going. So yes, let's connect again. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Sonia. Have a great day.
I want to thank Rui for joining me today. There's something powerful about watching someone stay curious about the same thing for decades. What starts as interest can slowly turn into knowledge. Knowledge can turn into credibility, and credibility, if you keep going long enough, can open doors you never expected. But none of that happens overnight. It happens because someone keeps learning, keeps paying attention, and keeps showing up in a space long after most people have moved on to something else. If you have something you care about deeply, don't dismiss it as just a hobby. Spend time really understanding it, build real knowledge around it, and see where that expertise might lead. And that's a wrap. Thank you for joining me on this journey of learning and growth. If this episode resonated with you, take a moment to subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, and share it with someone who's building through a challenge right now. You can also connect with us on social media and be part of a community that believes resilience is the real advantage. Remember, growth isn't linear, success isn't guaranteed, and setbacks are part of the process. What matters is how you execute. This is Sonia signing off, but as always, keep chasing your dreams with tenacity.